All right, let's get this show on the road. What is going on, everybody? Let me just get my chat opened up here. We can go ahead and start in like 5 seconds, as long as we're going out. And I believe we are. So awesome. If you guys want to say hello in chat, let me know that you can hear me. That would be awesome. And I can tell you a little bit about what we're going to do tonight while you guys do that. So if you guys have never been here before, this is the Pixologic ZBrush channel. Wherever you're watching, welcome everybody. And a bunch of different artists stream here, including myself. My name's Ben, or you guys can call me Polygon. Either one works. And I have been working on a concept by Luis Gadea. I started on this just last Tuesday for my last live stream here on the Pixologic channel. So let's see, maybe I can load in some of the other versions so you guys can see some of the progress. But as we're going, feel free to ask any questions about anything that I have created thus far, or really anything else. Doesn't really matter. We'll cover up as much as we can. That's what the streams are here for, questions and everything else. If you guys want to check out more of my stuff, there is my Gumroad, which is just gumroad.com/Polygon. I'll pull that down so you can see the URL there. I have all my courses, brushes, materials, all the stuff that I use professionally for my work over there. And then if you guys want to check out my YouTube channel, it's just youtube.com/Polygon as well. So check it out, and let's go ahead and get started here. We can go back into ZBrush, and it looks like the stream is going out. Cool. Just let me know if you guys can hear me, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. Stop me if you guys have any questions. So I worked on this guy just a little bit today, but let's load in just so you guys can see. He's starting to get there. He's a lot further along than he was before. But just as an example, let me show you guys the first version of this guy. So this is the first version. All right, we'll go through the Tubbs models back when he was named Tubbs. My materials get a little screwed up here, so not applied correctly. But as you can see, most of the work up through this point was kind of just blocking out some of the pieces in the body and face, and then that's when I started to more so accurately capture the appeal of the character, so you can kind of see the evolution, mainly on the face. A lot of the stuff in the body still kind of block out at that point. But boom, and boom. So pushing closer and closer, and then bam, that's where we are now. So not too much of a change in the face between the last one and the current. So this is the current, but as you can see, ooh, live booleans always screw that up. Here, let me turn that off for 5 seconds. Bam, and bam. So a lot more finished in terms of accessories and clothing, as well as I have given him some hands and feet. But other than that, that's really about it. Not too much has changed in the face other than some little scale tweaking there. But I'm going to go ahead and delete those so we don't end up having ginormous quick save files. And let's go ahead and do this. So the thing I wanted to start with tonight was creating this character's bag, because that needs to be done. It all needs to be finished. But in terms of major things that I'm missing here, the bag is kind of the next one on the list. I want to make sure that I have that set up. And okay, perfect, cool. All right, I am going to drop this guy up here. If you guys see the weird little blocks on his feet and you're wondering what the heck that is, that's just a live boolean that I have set up down here. I finally organized this guy and put him in folders and named everything. It's not normally how I operate though. Normally I'm haphazard and just go as quick as I can. But as you can see, here's the normal geometry, and then I have that little extra piece there subtracting, which is why I have a live boolean turned on there. But I'm going to toggle that off for a little bit while we work on this character's bag. Again, the concept over here, Luis Gadea. Definitely check him out. They have an art station, I believe. But let's ploop him over on the corner up top and get started on this bag. So I have, if I can find it, a little cube here that we're going to be using as our starting point. Nice and simple. And we're probably going to work without perspective in the beginning. I find when you're zooming in really close on stuff and working in kind of poly modeling with the Z modeler brush, at least in the beginning, I find it easier to do it without perspective on. Let's see here. Alright, cool. So let's, what do we want to do here? I want a little bit more of a simple shape, so I'm going to initialize that just a little bit. Actually, let's just use the Z-modeler brush. We're here. We can just delete some edge loops here. Nice and quick. All right. So I want to start with the most simple shape I can, and then we'll add polygons and edge loops to this as we need them. So looking at this bag, I actually imported this, and I am going to add that to my spotlight just so we can zoom in on it nice and big. We'll still have tubs down there in the corner as well. But essentially what we're looking at here is, I mean, it's essentially a cube, just squashed and stretched in certain directions, creating kind of a trapezoidal profile. So let's start there. Let's pull out here on the bottom. I'm gonna be using symmetry here in the beginning. What's going on, 3D aficionado? The new bearded look. I don't know if I would call it a beard, but it's getting there. It's well on its way. What's going on, man? Welcome. So let's go ahead and pull out our trap here. Start getting that lined up. And we can do a quick little proportional check. Obviously this is in perspective, so it's a little tough to figure some of this out, but I think the top needs to be a little more thin. And probably we need to start making the shape a bit longer. So let's do that next. We'll just kind of stretch that out. And I'm using the transpose line to do this. You can do all of these operations with the 3D gizmo. It's just a matter of using kind of the scale features and move features here. I prefer the transpose line though, myself, just because I've been using it for quite a while. Let's see. How's that looking? How's that feeling in terms of rough scale and proportion? I think that's feeling pretty good, and we can kind of mess with that as we go. So, step one, right? Just get the basic shape down and keep the poly count as low as we can to keep things simple and clean. From here, if I were to press the D key on my keyboard, that essentially activates a dynamic subdivision. It kind of pre-visualizes what your geometry would look like if you add a subdiv. And as you can see, it starts to pull in on itself. So I want to add in some nice edge loops around here to try to retain that shape a little bit easier. We could crease some edges, but I'll show you a little bit of a better way, I think, to do this. Jew Garrett, what's going on? I am doing fantastic. Thank you for asking, man. How are you doing? As well as Supernova, what's going on, dude? Welcome, welcome. For those that are new here, welcome to the Pixologic channel. I'm Polygon, and tonight we are creating, at least in the beginning, we're going to start with this bag. I didn't continue talking what else I had on the list. We're probably going to do a few changes to the character's hands before I break symmetry, and then we're going to go into posing. So bag, hands, posing. That is our order for tonight. But if anybody has any questions along the way, we can, of course, stop and take a break and work on something else. I'm going to make that a bit more narrow, and I'm going to grab my Z-modeler brush, and let's see. Let's try adding in some edge loops. I'm actually going to rotate this shape 90 degrees because I have the symmetry going the wrong way. I want this side to be facing the x-axis. Okay, cool. Just making sure that my symmetry is still intact. And then I am going to, let's see, let's do a bevel operation. And where do we want to put some bevels? Let's see. Let's put one up top. Hopefully get one here on the bottom. Oh, come on, go the right direction. It's not going to want to do it. So there's actually a little trick here that we can do to get bevels and edge loops and everything else without worrying about the Z-modeler brush at all. That's how I used to do it back before the Z-modeler brush came out. Hold Control and Shift, click up here, and grab the Slice Curve brush. And essentially we can manually slice your geometry any which way, but I am going to use it to actually add in some edge loops. A little bit of a creative solution here. We want to turn off perspective to do this though. And boom. So we got two edge loops, so now when I smooth that or subdivide it, you can see how it's retaining its shape a little bit better. We're going to do the same thing on the sides here. Let's see. Slice right on through. I'm just going to line up this angle here. pull that in a little bit, just like that. And let's see, it's retaining its shape pretty well on that side, so now we need it on the other, and I'm gonna do a mirror and weld function over there. Hopefully here it'll work. Let's see, that would be the Z, I think. But we are not on the correct axis here, so let's go down to deformation. I'm gonna click on unify. And essentially what this is gonna do is it's just gonna center my object in the ZBrush space here. If we look at position, you'll see that these are all zeroed out. So now when I click on mirror and weld, well, bam, we get that mirrored perfectly, and we also get an edge loop down the middle. But now that's starting to retain its shape a lot better. There's probably some more edge loops in a different form that we can start getting in here though to get that even better. But let's start creating some of the secondary parts and pieces here and getting this up to the next level. So there's also kind of the snap here, as well as maybe kind of an outer layer to the bag that we can play with. This is very kind of sketched out, so maybe we can grab some additional reference for a bag. If anybody finds a similar bag online, if anybody wants to Google and find some additional reference, link it in chat and we will take a look. Let's see. Trudging through astronomy as a required science course for your degree. Well, that sounds just like so much fun. Welcome to the corner of the internet where 3D modeling takes place. I'm not sure what led you here on your journey through space, but welcome. And Louisa, what's going on? How are you doing? Thank you, appreciate it, Louisa. Louisa is a student in my current ongoing Mastering Appeal course. But here's this guy, for those who are just joining us. I know he's up in the corner, but we got a couple more people in, so I'll do a quick spin around here. So, well, turn off polyframe on the fingernails there. Looks a little bit awkward. So yeah, I started this guy last Tuesday on the last live stream, so if you guys want to check that out, head on over to the Pixologic YouTube channel. You guys can see the VOD of that. And yeah, we're going to continue on this guy tonight. So let's get back to our little caban here and see what we want to add. Let's see here. I'm going to add this little strap here, and then we're going to add, or like little latch, I guess. And then we can add in those straps as well. So I actually have a button on his shirt that I'm going to repurpose. I'm going to duplicate that. You know, we got some stuff here, so we might as well reuse it. If you guys want to see how I made this, though, I'd be happy to show you. Let me just grab all of that here. And we're going to have to fix the scale here. I am going to fix the rotation on this, though, really quick with a quick transpose master, or transpose line fiddling real fast here. And I don't think this is perfectly flat. It is not. Alright, I'm going to have to eyeball this and probably fix the geometry by hand. Oh, you know what? Perspective. It's messing with my head. I think it was actually zeroed out. Alright, let's get the scale of that. Something like that. Maybe a little bit larger. And you know what? Let's go ahead and apply some color to this. Grab that color of the bag. And boom. Beautiful. Oh man, let's see. Resizes your model to the size of a ZBrush primitive when you unify. It does, 2 units cubed. If you want to center it without resizing, you can go into geometry position and zero out. That is correct. That's what I was showing off there with the position sliders. Absolutely. The Unify tool is in the deformation palette, or tool deformation palette. So tool, deformation, Unify, it's at the very top of the screen. It will bring everything to the central axis and make it a size appropriate for ZBrush to work with all your tools as best as possible. Let's see, 2D, what's going on, 2Diano? The sketch, yeah, it's by Luis Gadea. I've shown it off a few times already, so we'll look at it again a little bit later. Alright, let's get a couple more little clips in place. And get the rest of these straps. So these are low poly pieces. These were poly modeled from a cylinder using the Z modeler brush. And we've already looked at a couple techniques here with the Z modeler brush, but remember the objective here is to keep everything as low poly and simple as we possibly can. So we got that flattened out. A little trick for you guys with the transpose line, if you guys don't use this too often, you can actually flatten it to a normal of a piece of geometry, and then by holding shift and rotating, you can actually reorient its rotational axis to that normal. So for instance, this piece over here, click, snaps to that normal, hold shift while rotating, well bam, it's perfectly aligned with, what would that be, the Z axis there. Little trick, and I use that all the time for orienting stuff for 3D printing, for a bed, or anything like that. It's a good tool. And this actually isn't going to be perfectly straight over here, but it's probably fine to get that in position now. Let's do the little straps here. I'm going to use my cube tube brush for that. I've shown this off on stream before, but if you guys are interested in grabbing it, it's over on my Gumroad/Polygon. Let's just pull this up. Actually, a quick tip here. If you're using a curve brush, much like this, a little trick that you can do is in the stroke menu, under curve, we're going to turn on as line. And what that will do is allow me to pull just a straight line of that directly up. Just like that. And that looks a bit large, so let's lower the draw size of our brush. And let's lower the Z intensity as well to flatten that. Beautiful. We'll just click to select that, and I'm going to turn off as line because I will probably be using that again later and be very confused as to why it's doing that. Okay, let's get this piece of geometry positioned here. So this is a strap that the character is holding for this bag, and to make that feel like the character is holding the bag, like it has some nice weight and heft to it, it's very important that that strap stay taut, stay straight. So to make sure that that happens, I am going to delete any edge loops in between. So there is absolutely no chance of that bending or flexing. It is just perfectly straight. All right. And nice and simple, right? Pretty simple, pretty clean. I want to do something, I wanted to do something here in the beginning of the stream that would maybe be a little bit easier to follow along with. I'm trying to mention as many of the tools that I use as I can. A lot of the time, I know things go pretty quick and it's kind of hard to follow along on streams and this kind of thing. So hopefully we get a couple people caught up, but let's see here. An old doctor's bag vibe. Thank you, Ben Bow. Appreciate it. Ooh, got an Etsy link as well. So yes, if we want some additional reference, it's kind of similar, but the shape isn't quite there. But in terms of secondary pieces here, I'm kind of liking the nice hard edge on the side, and then how it like dips in and curves in. So in setting this piece, it's probably something that we'll experiment with. I will keep that open. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate that, man. Let's see. Unify. All deformation operations only apply to the currently selected subtool. Let's see here. How far off axis is this? Not too far. I'm gonna lazily recenter this. Let's see. Come on. I'm essentially just pushing that past the line of symmetry ever so slightly. To, why did that do that? Now I confuse myself. I think I'm facing the wrong way in 3D space. Ugh, got an idea, real quick. Boop, boop, boop. Alright, there we go. Now I'm facing the correct way. Alright, we'll worry about centering this stuff up later. Let's just kind of focus on the main things here first. Alright, so next up, let's get this strap piece and think about how that's going to connect there. There's a lot of different ways we could go about this, but I say we use what we already have. That's typically a good place to start. So I'm just duplicating the bag, and then I'm going to create the geometry in a similar shape and form to what we need there. So I'm going to use my slice curve brush again, and let's see here. Let's get an edge loop about right there. Mirror and weld that over to the other side. Whoop, we still have mirror and weld set to Z. Maybe I wasn't on the wrong side. I thought I was. It's fine. Mirror and weld that. And there we go. That's what we want. I'm going to turn off the bag temporarily. Let's get a loop, maybe about, so we're looking at there. Those are a little bit high, so these need to move down. Also a good way to help you figure out proportions. And I'm going to delete everything we don't need here. Boom. All right, let's see. We'll turn on double to make this a little bit easier as well. So now, essentially, what I've done is I've just sliced up the geometry and deleted what we don't need there. We got the bag still. And with a little scale up, we can start creating this shape. So, if you guys are familiar with the extrusion technique that I showed off at the end of our last live stream here on the Pixologic channel, I used the Z-modeler brush with the extrude all polygons function to extrude up that geometry. And as we smooth that out, it will, just because of the poly count here, because it's so low, it'll actually curve that surface and we can try to get that angled pretty close. Let's just make sure that we crease up the proper edges. And the shape is already pretty close to what we want there. And let's see here. I think that this is not going to be equal. I think this is something that's probably attached at the top of the bag, just based on bags that I've seen in the past. We can maybe look back at our doctor bag. Well, bam. Compliments of Benbow. Let's see. So I'm not seeing an angle from the other side where that strap is coming from, unfortunately. It looks like it is terminating based on that slight curve there, right about at the top of the bag. And for the purposes of not making it perfectly symmetrical, let's do that anyway, even if it's not. Fred Marquis, what's going on, man? Welcome, Fred. How are you doing? Let's grab all of this junk and move that up. And I'm gonna do some scaling to get that a little more flush. So I think that's starting to feel pretty good. Let's see, with our bag smoothed out, probably still not quite as tight of a form change as what we would want, but I want to create those inset sides like we were seeing in that doctor bag as well. Plus we need to attach this. Let's see. I'll show you guys a little trick with mirroring and welding yet again. I'm gonna use some of the same techniques here though. Lazily slicing and extruding geometry. We could use the Z-modeler brush to do all of this, but honestly, this is a little bit faster. Alright, so I'm going to pull that across to right about there, and then essentially just run that mirror and weld operation. I've been doing that a few times, so let me show you where that is. It's in under Tool, Geometry, Modify Topology, Mirror, and Weld. Alright, so we got that, as well as probably a few creases. Would be nice to have. And there we go, our strap's looking pretty good. Starting to get there. Let's see. Let's have these straps terminate inside the bag, so they kind of like slide in and disappear. And to do that, let's do something like this. Oh, our character disappeared there for a minute. There we go. Now the geometry is interpenetrating itself here. That's never something we want, so let's try to fix that. Alright, I think that's feeling pretty good. Not exact, right? But we're getting there. Kind of match that angle a little bit more closely. Alright, so something like that for now. I think they could probably go a little bit lower, but that's fine. We'll deal with that in a minute. Let's see, what else are we missing? What's next? Probably to start shaping up this bag a little bit more. So I'm going to show you guys another trick that you can do here in ZBrush. So I'm sure you guys are aware that when you subdivide geometry, it shrinks and it smooths out between polygons, kind of like what we were seeing in our bag before when... Oh, did that even do it? No, it did not. Here. So if you have a cube and you subdivide that cube, it's going to, shrink in on itself as you subdivide it more. And in this case, become something close to a perfect sphere. So what we want to do here instead is turn off this button, which is the smooth modifier for when you subdivide. So I will just subdivide this cube, and essentially it will not smooth out the edges, but I am going to go back through and manually smooth them out. So let's get one, maybe two more subdivs in there, and I am going to go through and smooth these out. And let's undo a little bit here, back to where we were. And I would like to turn on, up in transform, Z, the Z axis. So now I am smoothing this a little bit more symmetrically on the opposite side of the bag as well. And I'm just going to step up and down through my subdivs, being careful not to smooth too much in certain places, especially these corners. Really easy to destroy our form there, but let's see. A little bit more. So we're kind of manually just getting a nice clean edge. And if you're having trouble with the smooth brush, I would recommend trying out the alternative smooth algorithm with that. Essentially how you get that to happen is, let's see, let's step down a little bit. So if you use the smooth brush with geometry, it's pretty destructive, pretty strong, and you get a lot of errors and problems with it like this. But if you start smoothing and let go of the shift key, and that's probably a bad example, I'm wondering if I have something that's good here. Here, we'll do this. So on this instance, you can see how destructive it is. But now, just because that's a higher poly count, essentially what it does is it averages out between your form. It's not quite as destructive, And the way you do that is start smoothing with the shift key and then let go of the shift key and keep smoothing. A little bit less destructive, and it kind of operates a little bit differently. Something that you kind of have to experiment with to figure out all the use cases for, but it's a good brush. Let's see. I want to get that inset point there. We have some poly groups, which is nice, but unfortunately we don't have one that goes all the way to the edge. So let's do this. We're going to create kind of like an outer shell for our geometry, or for our bag, I should say. And many ways that we could go about this. I'm trying to think how I would like to do it. Now let's look at that doctor bag again and see what they did. That's why it's always nice to have a little bit of extra reference, because we don't know how everything works. Before I smack my Cintiq with my water bottle. Alright, so we got this hard edge, and it looks like it just kind of wraps around the entire outside of the bag, except for the sides and obviously the top, because that is where the opening for the bag needs to be. And I do not see an opening in this bag. I kind of like this, actually, how it's like got this cinched closing thing happening up top. That's pretty cool. We might try something like that. Okay, so let's get this outside portion of the bag. And let's see. By going through our undos, I want to get back to my bag when it was just right here. Right there. Duplicate that. Alright, so one of the benefits of keeping those undos, unfortunately I can't, step down my subdivs to get back to that point, just because as you subdivide and smooth and do some other stuff with your geometry, you can see that my lowest point no longer looks like what it originally did. So luckily, with the power of our undo history, I've gotten that back, and essentially what I'm going to do here with this is extrude, or let's see, we can probably just delete some of this stuff. So let's just go to delete, single poly, turn on double, and I'm gonna get rid of these as well. So I just want this outer shell, just like that. Pretty simple, as has been the theme for tonight. Let's increase that size a little. And let's use our Z modeler brush again to extrude all polygons. And we'll smooth that out. I think it's a little bit too large, so I'm going to scale that back. And it'll probably require a little bit of additional manipulation to get that feeling a little bit closer to what we want. So you'll notice that I'm using just a lot of different subtools to create each and every one of these parts. You could probably try to, sculpt a lot of these different parts and, just get a really high poly count and use something like a pinch brush, but I find it a lot easier, and you get a lot more control by working with a lot of subtools. Think of it kind of like in Photoshop, think of it as maybe like working with a lot of layers, kind of a similar situation to that. So you can control the poly count and form of just one layer or one piece in this instance. Whereas when it's all one, you kind of just have to freehand everything and hope it works out. And if it doesn't, well, you're just kind of in trouble. What's also really nice about ZBrush is if you think about it in that way as layers, then each layer that you have has undos, which is pretty crazy. So every single one of these objects has undos for me. pulling that strap down a little bit lower. As well as these little buttons. Alright, we're getting there. One step at a time, one object at a time. A good custom profile for the Intuos tablet for ZBrush. Because you are left-handed. I'm wondering if it's because of the custom keys. I think you can flip it and set it within the Intuos to be left-handed. I believe it has that capability within the Wacom, what's it called, like Desktop Center? I can't remember what the app's called. The application that comes with it that you can use to modify your preferences. I believe it's just like a toggle set it to left-handed. I would give it a quick Google, see if you can find it. Alright, so we're starting to get that harder edge on the outside. This is kind of what I was looking for. And then with this piece, what we want to do is create that inset geometry. Kind of like that doctor bag that we were looking at. I'm wondering how... We probably want to figure out how we want to do that, that hole, that opening up top. Or I might just not do one, just because this is such a little side piece here. We can maybe think about that a little bit later. So let's just kind of continue on here. Let's actually for this, just because it's kind of like this crinkled fabric, let's just do this by hand. I think it'll be a little bit more organic that way. So let's just kind of sketch in here a little bit. And I'm going to carve in pretty hard. Whoops. And just use some kind of clay brush to start pushing in. I'm going to keep this symmetrical for now, but obviously we would want to break symmetry, especially on those organic shapes, to make sure that those don't feel super awkward. And the other thing that's going to happen here is that we're going to have to adjust our strap to make that fit a little bit better with this new setup. So definitely some problem solving with just such a simple bag. It seems like maybe a simple thing, but you know, it's good to think about this stuff and take your time with it. And you know what? Maybe we just inset a little bit too much. So let's roll this back. Honestly, we could probably just pull that out completely and maybe do the opposite. I think that might look good as well, and that would actually solve the problem with the strap there. Let's try that out. Let's play around with it. Let's see what that looks like. But maybe still keep some kind of nice crisp edge here. Oh, you know what? I do want that smoothing out now. Let's see here. A profile ready for ZBrush to start customizing from it. I don't really have a custom profile, so I don't really know exactly what you're looking for. The only thing that I have changed on my pen is that my button on my pen, I only have one anymore because the one stopped working, unfortunately, so I had to switch the way I hold my pen for a while, and now I'm kind of used to it. But my pen is a right click, yes. my pen is right-click. And you definitely want to use right-click navigation if you're new to ZBrush. Do not use the, left-click on the canvas navigation, because with right-click, or with left-click, if you were to try to rotate this object, and let's say it's really big on your screen, and you click and try to rotate, oh, you're just going to sculpt on your model. Well, that sucks. But with right-click, you can click anywhere, including on your model. So it's a lot better. It's a lot more efficient. Honestly, I don't know why left-click navigation really even exists. I think it should only be right-click navigation, because I think it gets people into bad habits of getting used to that. Let's see. Make sure I didn't miss anything else, but yeah. Let's probably take a little bit of a break from our bag, because we have most of the parts and pieces in there for now, and then I can polish this up a little bit more later, because really, we got everything in there, and it's just a matter of taking it to the next level. Really, the only thing that we might be missing is some stitching. That's pretty easy to do, though. So let's grab our whole dude here. Obviously, the proportions of our bag are quite a bit too large, but that's fine. We'll take care of that later. All right, so I wanted to sculpt on this dude's hands for a little bit, and I am going to grab our concept here and do a little tile proportional. Slide that bag out of the way. All right, so since our last stream, you guys have not seen the changes that I've made to this guy. Pretty much I just added in some hands, some feet, or shoes, better yet, and I've extruded a couple pieces of clothing. Other than that, still pretty much the same dude. So let's take a look at our hands. The thing I want to do with the hands is I started using this kind of, rough form that I could see as an idea to start pushing the hands in that direction. But now I want to start paying attention to the silhouette a little bit more for that hand. And try to get these a little bit closer. So essentially, he doesn't even have a wrist. It just goes from hand directly into arm. This big, round arm. Whoa, that's fun. There we go. We'll just cradle him in our palm over here. Cradle him by the butt. Beautiful. So, he doesn't have much of a hand to speak of. If we follow that line down from the pinky, just a nice, crisp, beautiful curve. So let's try to get that. I really like to plane stuff out, though, when I'm starting on my hands. It's a really good idea to do that. Just so you can figure out the major shapes and proportions. Hands can be really tough. Especially a hand like this, where it just transitions into the arm. I've done this I've done hands like this maybe once. It'll be fun and interesting to play around with. I always F to zoom out and click navigate space so I can rotate. See? There you go, right there. You got used to the clicking on the canvas, right? It's once you start using right-click navigation, it's like, why does this exist? But I think it's kind of I don't know if they were both there in the beginning, but I think it should be removed in my opinion. Because like I said, it creates bad habits. And I'm glad that I could learn you something new, as we say. Alright, let's see. Trying to get a little bit more width here from the profile of the hand. Starting to feel better. Starting to get a nice, crisp curve. I'm liking that. Liking that a lot, actually. Could probably stand to be even chunkier. Love me some chunky hands. Actually, I just kind of hate sculpting hands in general. Hands are really tough, like I said. And they take a lot of time, and they only get paid attention to if there's something wrong with them. Alright, so I don't really need a lot of that to be seen on the one hand, this one. So I'm okay if the wrist starts poking through the sleeve right now, because I can chop that off later, and these are going to be asymmetrical. Very clearly the shapes are asymmetrical, so we're going to have to play with that once we start posing this guy. But I wanted to do some of that asymmetrically just to make it a little bit, or I'm sorry, symmetrically, before we break symmetry, to make that a little bit easier for us. Hard to talk and sculpt at the same time, and actually say something somewhat intelligent. There we go, we got another one. Didn't know about the right-click navigation. Hey, there's probably a lot of other little things that you might not know. That documentation, check it out. It's got some good stuff in there. Or hey, check out my YouTube channel. I talk about all this stuff. Like, I recently made a video, I say recently, but it was maybe a couple months ago, talking about all the cool secret features of the transpose line, like inflate. Like you can inflate with your transpose line, or deflate, or uninflate, whatever you want to call it. There's lots of cool little things you can do with the transpose line, like clipping, cutting, using bend curve deformers. Whoops, that's not it. It's this one. Isn't that? Oh, that's kind of weird. Wish I could do that with my hands. Alright. Live Boolean is really not liking my dude over here. So that's feeling quite a bit better, just in terms of silhouette and larger forms. Let's see here. I say we go ahead and break sim on this guy, but we'll do kind of like one last look-see on our dude to make sure that there's nothing else that I want to change before breaking symmetry. I'm actually pretty happy with the face in the neutral. I tried to get some of these harder turns at, I guess, the chin line about, so that it would be easier to do that, because it's, you know, it's going to be easier for me to smooth it down on one side than it is going to be to sculpt that up. Let's see. I don't think there's really anything else that I want to do. Just double checking one last time, because once you go and break sim, there's no going back. That's not completely true, but for the most part. I'm also going to save this out before we do that. Alright, let's go ahead and break symmetry and start posing this guy up. So to begin, we got all of our pieces here. And let's just head directly into Transpose Master. I don't think I have anything hidden, but we will check on that in just a moment. So I'm using Transpose Master. This is a plugin under Z plugin, Transpose Master. You click on T-Pose Mesh. And I got some weird stuff going on here with my feet. So it'll be a little bit weird to look at, but here's our guy in all of his lowest subdivision levels for all of his pieces. All right, let's T-pose this back just to make sure that we don't have anything going on here, anything missing. Because what ends up happening is if you work on your character for a long time, working on breaking symmetry and the pose and everything else, and then you go to T-pose it back and you have some kind of vertex count mismatch, you can run into a lot of errors there. But it looks like we are good to go. Hopefully. It's going through the last couple there. Following along with one of your creating stylized female face tutorials on YouTube, and it really helps a lot. Awesome, man. Happy to help. I am here as well if you have any questions along the way. And I always tell people, feel free to shoot me an email at any point. I'm typically quick to respond if you guys have any questions or anything that you can't find online. There's also always the official ZBrush Discord, and I also admin a community ZBrush Discord. But they are both great places to ask questions and get some pretty quick replies. So, where do we begin? Where do we begin with our big lump of lard? So I really struggled with getting the neutral of this character simply because he is kind of offset so much. Actually, let me see here. I might. Yes, I do have him here in Photoshop. So I had a lot of trouble getting the neutral pose for this character. Simply because he has this nice like lean and skewing of his shape. I outlined a little bit of this to help you guys see it, so you guys can see, you know, how much of his belly is kind of pointed out that way in space. So definitely a challenge to get that to feel like it was the same character in same proportions. And just as a little extra check there, this line. Whoops. Here we go. This line here is essentially his center line, and what you can see here is essentially the angles or contrapposto of the character. So he's leaning his head a little bit off that direction. We can flip that too. He's leaning his head off a little bit to his right, body's leaning off a little bit the opposite direction, and legs are going the opposite way. So this is something that you see very often in character poses. Makes the character feel very dynamic, very natural as well. It keeps it from feeling stiff. So we're going to be trying to get all of that into our dude here. Let's head back to ZBrush and do that. So I'm thinking that the first thing that we should probably do is probably offset the entire body of this character. So offset kind of the main weight. And I have a lot of little buttons, and I have a tie and some accessories here. And probably what's going to end up happening is that they are going to get screwed up while I do this, because I plan on doing this just with a very large move brush. So when I do something like this, you can see that my buttons start to skew their shape. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo the posing on those and then redo it later. But just to get this headed in the right direction quickly in the beginning, it would be a good idea to do this. Do it this way. Alright. And see if I want to grab anything else. Let's just start. Oh, you know what? Here, let's start here. I want to make sure that I do this right in the beginning to make it a little bit easier on myself later. I want to keep those feet flat if I can. And let me think here for a second. So I think his left foot is forward. I think right shoulder forward, left hip back. Right shoulder forward, left hip back. So we're gonna have to, he doesn't have hips actually, I take that back. So he's facing the camera a little bit. Ooh, let me center that rotational point. Actually, I can just rotate the whole dude. Let's do it this way first, because I think the legs are going to be opposite to have that make more sense. And based off of that little draw over that I did, it seemed like his weight was pretty even between his legs. So I don't think he's going to have a ton of weight on any one particular leg. Typically when that happens, that leg needs to be directly underneath your character to balance him out, or at least underneath his center point. In this case, pretty much the even place, even spot between the legs will be where his center of gravity is. So his belly's way out here, but his head and everything else are leaning out to the other side. And just because of the perspective, it's a little bit hard to see some of that, but after looking over a little bit, that is what I have found. All right, so we've broken sim on this guy. We're getting there. Let's go ahead and do our legs next. So I like to get kind of the main line of the body first, and then I worry about things like arms and limbs, but the legs are kind of a part of that main line. So let's grab this leg over here. And I'm just going to slide that out a little bit. Try to match that angle that I'm seeing. Unfortunately, with a transpose master, your creases and everything don't come along, so that is what's happening here. Just kind of getting an idea of what that looks like. And it's okay to do this kind of in passes, like when you sculpt. It's kind of how I like to think of it. Start with just the kind of rough block out of the pose, getting most of the early proportions in, and then you can do a little bit more exact stuff out of transpose master, or even come back into T-pose later. And I gave him these little stick legs just because they're pretty much not seen, but also his feet are super tiny, so essentially what I would have to do is just like grow that out really big. I thought it was kind of funny to keep them little stick legs. You can't really see them now, so I don't think it matters. I might mess with them a little bit more later. Alright, so I want to offset those legs a little bit more. Let's just see how he's feeling here. Let's turn on our floor as well. Those little ice skates are kind of getting in the way. My little Boolean subtraction piece. Alright, so he still feels pretty off balance here because I haven't really offset the weight of his belly yet. So let's do that next. And you know what? We're talking about that bend curve deformer with the transpose line, and this might actually be a pretty good place to play around with it. Let's see. Mainly just looking at the silhouette right now. This line in particular is nice and rounded and clean all the way up to the character's head. So I think I'm going to need some more volume around the chest. Let's see here. Man, this is skewed pretty hard, so I think I'm gonna turn off the arms because they're kind of just messing with my my head right now. And let's yoink this guy past the point of no return. I'm using a really large move brush right now. So I definitely want to capture this nice rounded gesture. Got some good stuff going on there. And like I said, when I do this, these buttons are gonna get screwed up, but we'll get those back later. And then that main hit is a little bit higher, so let's try to get that back. And let's try to get some more volume in the chest. If you can see how that's kind of like dipping in a little bit there, it's the opposite of what we want. Either perfectly straight or curving the other way ever so slightly. And really quick, let's just put you back up in the corner to hang out for a minute, dude. I really struggled with this character's arms as well. because I could not get this arm to go at this angle because of the size of the belly, but I had to wait until I broke sim, so now I'll be able to kind of align that a lot better. So the quicker we get into asim here, honestly, the better with this dude. I think the legs are probably a little bit too far apart. Still kind of just focusing on that main line of the body, but I probably won't be able to see too many of the really large mistakes until I T-pose this back. Fish Tacos, what's up? Yes, the cool kids stream, cool kids only, as I've said. All right, let's grab this dude's head. Yeah, if you're not a cool kid, you unfortunately have to leave the stream. It's kind of the rule tonight. All right, I'm gonna try getting the skew here in the head, the little tilt, without losing too much of the shape here. Even if we do, though, it's not, it's not the end of the world. We can get this back later. And there's some re-sculpting that's gonna have to happen there no matter what. Whoop. We're gonna yoink that real hard. And the chin kind of needs to come along with this rotation. I don't have it too much right now. Pretty much completely flat on the one side of his head. So that's going to need to be re-sculpted there. He's very asymmetrical, that's for sure. Tough character. Let me see here. That just needs to come over quite a bit more. Ooh, and there we go. Start breaking you. This is not what I wanted. There we go. That is what I wanted. All right. Let's see if I can fix some of that angle. Honestly, like I said, a lot will be re-sculpted here. So we have a pretty strong angle into a flat. That's a little bit over a 90-degree angle, it looks like, coming down from the side of the head to that part that blends into essentially the neck and fat roll there. LD Bean, V Napier, what's going on, guys? All right, so now I can finally push in these shoulders to be a little bit closer. I know that the head is still kind of in a pretty iffy place right now, but I'm gonna have to take care of a lot of that outside of Transpose Master. I think I'm going to rip this angle just a little bit harder. Pretty crazy, but his face is still intact. It's just his neck that's destroyed. I'm trying to just look at the silhouette and match as much as I can now. What's up, Melting Point? How you doing? I feel like I missed something over on Twitch chat, like the channel got raided or something. Unfortunately, the Pixologic channel doesn't have any, Twitch stream notifications turned on. But if it's your first time here, welcome everybody. Hope you're having a good night. My name's Ben. I'm one of the many streamers here on the Pixologic channel. Quite a few of us. And I am concentrating. Alright, so I've kept a lot of this pretty low poly, which is good. It makes kind of getting a lot of these major breaks in the silhouette a lot easier for me. I think the back here needs a bit more volume based on what I'm seeing. Ooh. That is definitely the case. All right, let's go ahead and start offsetting that other arm. Get that angle a little bit closer. Whew, it's an extreme turn. I'm just gonna grab the whole thing. And I'm going to have to create a separate piece for this later. So I think for now, let's just get the hand in the correct position. All right. That is a very extreme turn, so we're just gonna really break this. Let me get the hand there first. All the way up, grabbing on the hat, brim of the hat. Also coming forward more so than the other shoulder. So I think the angle here, based on what I can see of the hand, is going to be twisted a bit more. Oh no! What are you doing there? Why are you doing that? Ah, man, that sucks. Here, let me roll back. This is the one thing that I do not want to get messed up with my hand. Alright. So the angle of that is coming out away from him at a less steep angle than the body. But still pretty steep of an angle. Hector, what's going on, man? Welcome. Welcome to the stream. Working a bit more on this dude from last week. Working on posing right now. Breaking some stuff first. Gotta break it before you fix it for posing. Alright. I do not speak Spanish, unfortunately, but I do know that me gusta means I like, or at least I think it does. If it does, thank you. Appreciate it, Hector. Hope you're having a good night, man. All right, so I'm looking at how much of that is visible for our sleeve. Where we want that. Lots of stuff that needs to change here. Alright, It's going to be a little bit easier for me to do that rotational change outside of transpose master, so I'm going to leave that up there for now, and I will do some of that a little bit later. Same thing here with rotating to connect into the body, so I'm going to have to leave that and fix some of that after. Let's go ahead and T-pose back just to make sure that nothing is not changing here too much. I want to make sure that it's going to work as well before we get too far ahead. And I need to make sure that we don't lose the shape of our round friend here. So very, very offset there in the silhouette, but I think we're starting to get that a lot closer now. There's quite a few more changes that we can make though. Let's go ahead and transpose back and let that do its thing. Go ahead, break our good boy here. Our big boy. And then I'm gonna have to do some stuff with symmetry really quick. Boom, boom, boom. Everything broken, beautiful. Awesome. Our bag still there as well. So I'm gonna go up to the top of my list here and just run through everything and turn off symmetry. A little bit boring, but it needs to be done because it's gonna make working on all this stuff very annoying if I don't do this. Oh, I actually want it on for the bag because we're still working on that. And I'm going to delete this folder. I don't need it anymore. Alright, so lots of broken stuff. That's good. But we've started to push this guy in the direction that we need. Let me make sure his feet are still flat on the ground. They are beautiful. Alright, we'll mess with position and everything else for those too as we move forward. The main thing is that we are starting to get the angle of the head, the angle of the body, the angle of the legs. So we wanted to start pushing in that direction a little bit here first. So I'm noticing in this silhouette we're still getting a little bit of a dip in kind of a crescent shape that way. I'm wondering, let's see here. I think I can probably just oh, you know what? I think there's some twist in his body as well. I think there is a deformer that I can do this with. I feel like you can do this with the transpose line. I can't remember though. We're gonna find out. I believe that you can. You can, yes, okay. So the way I'm doing this is drawing out my transpose line. It's very similar to this bend curve deformer. So you draw out your transpose line. I want to make sure I don't lose the angle. Set it to rotate. Hold the Alt key and click on that middle circle. You can see how it's kind of twisting and warping everything. I want this line to start curving off a little bit more this way. And I'm going to have that right shoulder scrunched up against him quite a bit more based on that move. That'll be something that I play with a bit more too as we move forward. Lots of stuff, but you know, one step at a time. You got to get the big stuff down first. Start large, then medium, then small. I want to at least get that shoulder in the right place. Almost where I want it. Just looking at that silhouette a little bit more closely. Alright. And I will realign that arm outside of transpose. Quick tip with masking and polygroups, if you can control, click, and drag using the mask lasso, it's a great little tool for doing quick masks, and then by pressing Control W, you can create a quick polygroup. I'm gonna move these feet out. And probably make the pant legs a little bit longer as well. So much to do. It's kind of hard to know what to focus on sometimes. But if you just start working on what you notice, eventually you'll get there. Looks like the pant leg is a little bit kind of squashed from what I can tell. Not quite as round as what I thought. So that'll be a little interesting. I don't know exactly how I want to do that. That might end up looking pretty strange. Just kind of going off of the shape language of the character, I can kind of infer that these are maybe a little bit more rounded, but it's a pretty sharp kind of turn there. A little bit squashed probably won't hurt. All right, let's see. Fun stuff. Completely broken, but it had to be done. I'm thinking his glasses need to be scaled up a little bit larger as well, now that I'm looking at this. It's one thing that's good about posing as well, is that as you start to kind of break symmetry, you'll notice more proportional differences between things that you thought you had right. Happens all the time. So this arm over here is going to be tough because it's just such a different shape. Let's split this off. Turn off live boolean again because it's screwing everything up. It's what our guy did look like not too long ago. And essentially what I would like to do, I'll probably just butcher this a little bit with Dynamesh into two separate objects. I think that's going to be a lot easier. So let's do that. I'm not sure if it's a thing or not. Can you use Z-spheres to rig the character? Yes, you can. But it's not like a traditional, you know, my rig where you have the ability to like hand paint skin weights. Plus, I wouldn't want to do something like this when the topology is not made for animation. So, because you're gonna have to re-sculpt stuff anyway, I think a Z-sphere rig is kind of pointless if you're just posing a sculpt. I think it's a lot slower, and I think it's a waste of time. You can do it though. Yes, absolutely. I think Z-spheres in general are kind of a waste of time. But I know a lot of people that like to use them. So play around with both. See what works best for you. Even if it's something that you only use once, I recommend trying it. Typically, I'm you know, at this point I'm pretty set in stone in a lot of stuff in my workflow, but whenever something new comes out, I obviously try to find a way to incorporate it into my workflow if I can. And then when I was kind of getting started, I always experimented with as much as I could. And even when I create characters now, I still experiment with stuff and try to do things in a little bit of a different way every single time. Like I never sculpt a nose the exact same way. I think formulas are often, you know, bad. And I've talked about this a lot on my streams and on my YouTube channel, but formula or form is greater than formula, essentially. Formulas kind of stagnate your work and don't let you, they kind of like get you set in stone, and they can stagnate your work. They don't necessarily stagnate your work. You can still be smart about it. And formulas can be good for a lot of things, but overall, you know, the most important thing is just form. Paying attention to the form of what you're trying to model, sculpt, draw, paint, whatever. It's the most important part. This arm is also much more wide, and I'm gonna guess that they're gonna attribute that to like the squishing of the arm, or this one just needs to scale up quite a bit. And I think it's actually a little bit of both. I think this arm is much larger than the other. Well, you know what? It might just be kind of an angle thing. Okay, I see what's going on. It's a little bit of a fold there. It's kind of messing with my head. So we take our transpose line. Ooh, I did have it correct actually. So about right there. Kind of line that up with our shoulder. That's about what we're looking for. And that comes out quite a bit further. And it actually starts to curve up as well. So I like that. That's a cool shape, actually. It's good stuff. Just maybe a little bit broken. We'll have to experiment here and play around. Trying to think how I'm going to do this. Quite a bit of warping happening there. That will be a tough arm for sure. But at least we got it kind of going in the right direction initially. And like I said, I'm just dynameshing this up, trying to get some stuff on the canvas quick so we can start getting positions correct. Positions, proportions, all that good stuff. And I will probably move that hand out a bit, add a little bit more twist to it. But I think these hands are going to, you know what, maybe it's not the hand, maybe it's just more so the wrist. For sure the wrist is going to need to get quite a bit larger. Like I said, the other one doesn't really matter because it's not seen, so for the most part, I can get pretty crazy with this dude and not worry about the other one. It's weird how, here, let me see something. It's kind of in perspective though, so it doesn't really matter. Some foreshortening happening. I'd expect a bit more though, honestly. Alright. Can't really move that hand right now because the nails aren't attached. I don't want those to float away. That is what Transpose Master is for. So, the whole reason that I used Transpose Master, Z plugin, here, sorry, Subtool Master, or no, it is Transpose Master, yes. T-Pose Mesh. It's because it takes all of your meshes and combines them into one tool temporarily. Then you can make large scale adjustments to everything at once, or small scale. But you can modify everything all at once. And that's the whole benefit there. Alright, I am going to probably combine these right now, and I'll probably end up splitting these back up later, but let's just start working on this shape a bit more. Anytime when I'm working on an arm that has a really strong, yeah, I know I'm showing off my huge guns. Anytime I'm working on an arm or leg that has a really strong bend in it, that's greater than, essentially anything greater than 90, or like around there, I tend to split that into two separate shapes, two separate subtools. It's a lot easier to work on, but at least in the beginning stages we can start to combine these just so I can kind of work on the elbow a little bit. He also has like this little jagged point there for his elbow, which is a bit strange. Yes, you can use Z-spheres to create meshes as well, so you can use it to block stuff out. I pretty much block out everything from primitive pieces of geometry though. So up here, and grab a primitive. I'll start with, typically when I start sculpting anything, I start with a sphere. That's how I started this guy. And I'll either do that or I'll do like what I did with the bag down here, where I started with a cube. And you can do that in the initialize palette down here by creating a quick cube with a 1 by 1 by 1 poly count. Alright, I need to remember right now to do this to my buttons because they are skewed and I will not be able to get these undos later if I don't do this right now. Alright. So hold on. So with these ones, you can see how the shape is kind of squashed and stretched. So I've just quickly gone back through my undos to get back to here. And now I'm just going to get the position there. Match that. And our buttons are still intact. So the benefit, or the reason why I did this is so that I could benefit from using just a really large move brush on my object, on my character, and essentially get a feel for where these buttons would be moving to, would be placed. But obviously all the skewing, squashing, and stretching is pretty annoying, so we don't want that. Hence, the undos. A little bit boring, but it's gotta be done. Then we can just delete those old ones, as long as our tablet keeps working. So those are in the same position now as where they were previously, and they are round again. Let's fix these ones down here. These actually didn't end up too bad. You could probably get away, in my opinion. I do this sometimes. I just kind of, you know, correct them and round them back out as best as I can. But I think for this, I would prefer to have them perfect. So let's go back to our little simple button. Plus, if I want to poly model on these later, which I kind of do, if you try to poly model on something that's skewed like that, you'll end up with some pretty weird results, which is very frustrating. And let's turn off perspective. As I was mentioning earlier, the camera can get a little annoying to deal with when you're zoomed in really close like this. Right, and they don't need to be perfect, I just need to get kind of the general position of where they were. Alright, awesome, so we got those buttons back. And let's see, whoops. There's a lot of different things that we can work on, obviously. But I say we kind of hold off on the arm for a little bit. We'll just kind of leave it where it is for now. I might fix the cuff positionally really quick, but I want to do some stuff up here to the head to start fixing what we have. Mainly getting this to be a bit more clean and read like what we're seeing in our concept. So let me flatten back out this side of the head. Nice flat side there. Want that to read nice from every angle. Just kind of filling that in really quick with a clay brush. A little bit of trim. And a pretty quick fix. I just want to make sure that I don't screw up my eyes. Or anything else on my face, actually. Well, a little bit of a material freak out there. It's a really common bug. I'll show you guys here in a sec how to fix it. Alright, so cleaned up that side of the face pretty quickly. Angle-wise, I think we're pretty close. Probably maybe a little too steep, but that's something that we can deal with later. Chin needs to move. Maybe not as much as I thought. Starting to get a bit crazy through here though. I want to make sure that that silhouette's still nice. Good old ZBrush just does whatever it wants. I don't know about that. I think most of the time it's operator error. If you're referring to that bug there with the material, so this is actually something that happens. So the incorrect material is assigned here, which is why I selected this other material, because that's what I have applied right now. So this happens when you poly paint or add materials or any kind of poly paint change at lower subdivision levels. You're supposed to only poly paint at your highest subdivision level. And essentially that unassigns the material that you have selected on there. So what you have to do is grab your material, set your brush to M or material, click on fill object, and then you can swap your materials again. Essentially the way ZBrush works, if you don't have a material applied to a polygon, it will display whatever material you have selected, which is why it was kind of freaking out there. And it'll do that a bit more as I continue sculpting and working on this dude. Let's try to get the other side of this face figured out. Whoop! Your ear needs to come out, doesn't it? It's kind of sticking inside your head. It's no good. It's not a matter of ZBrush doing whatever it wants. It's just kind of, you know, a lot to kind of take in and understand sometimes. Or it just feels like it's doing whatever it wants, but once you understand what's kind of going on under the hood, it makes a bit more sense. Have to get back to work. Oh no, that's no fun. Or maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know what you're working on. Good luck to you, Ben. And thanks for that quick find for the doctor bag. Appreciate it, man. Have a great rest of your day. You thought it was happening with masking. No, the material freakout does not happen when masking. You can mask as much as you want. It might just be that you're masking at lower poly groups. By default, the move brush has RGB turned on. So if you are using the move brush on geometry with polypaint on it, of course it's going to kind of cause those mistakes. Same thing with the smooth brush. The smooth brush has RGB turned on by default as well. I recommend toggling that off if you're working on anything with polypaint. But the smooth brush with RGB can actually be really cool to help blend colors. I might be doing that a little bit later to fix some stuff. I really like that curve there. I think that collar needs to just be a little bit tighter up against his face. This can also come forward a little bit more. It's a lot there. A lot there to try to interpret and play with. Hey, but we're getting there. Trying to match that pose a bit more. Get a bit closer to the angle of the face. Would he, I'm thinking right shoulder forward. So he would be turning his head a little bit away from the camera. And I think I can get a little bit of that in there, which is going to help make that face, maybe not. Maybe we should avoid that. We'll maybe play with that later. What's that looking like from the back? Really just need to clean this line up. Gotta obsess over this stuff. Get it to look as nice as possible. just a little bit of a sharper hit in the silhouette. Oh, we can soften some of that later, but at least for that side there, kind of fade that out here a little bit. There we go. Starting to read a little bit better. Try to keep that a little bit harder over there. You need to go away, Mr. Hat. Can't see anything. And I need to make sure that I have this angle correct. Don't think that I do. Like I said, it's almost a 90-degree angle. I have like 120 there, so that needs to change quite a bit. Let me see what needs to change for that. So, oh, okay. Yeah, I see what's wrong here. We need to raise up that shoulder quite a bit. I was wondering why that was feeling so off. Whoops. Let's see. So, oof. It's a big, big grope there of geometry. Ooh. It's looking pretty nasty, but that's kind of where we need that, at least for the head. So we're getting close to that 90-degree angle turn, like I said. And then from here, I'm going to raise up that shoulder to kind of meet that stuff. Just tightening some of this up. I know it looks like really awkward right now for that connection, but like I said, that's what's really nice about Transpose Master, is that you can move so many things at once without it feeling too crazy. But just kind of being able to recognize that stuff, see through it, it's hard to do. I struggle with it a lot too. Let's see. Zelgod, what's up? What's your question? Fire away. Oh no, sorry. Sir Doomington, I was reading your message there. That was the same one from earlier. I was confused. Got too deep in the polys, too focused. Alright. Probably, let's see, I'm gonna shorten this just a little bit. It's probably best that I get that into position first, but I'll just move that a little bit now. Look at our extreme angles, make sure nothing's feeling too awkward from the top down. And our 3/4. Alright. Let's go back to T-pose really fast and grab as much junk there as we can and slide that up. When opening a project to get a copy of my subtools, more like a snapshot stuck in the background. What is that? What am I doing wrong? So see this guy up here in the corner? See how he's like stuck on my screen? It is essentially what you just said, a snapshot. You're essentially dropping the object to your canvas. So this is your canvas or your document. You can drop any object that you have on screen to your document by pressing Shift-S. If you want to set that to a different hotkey, you can, but Shift-S is what you are pressing on accident to do that. You can clear that up here under Layer and Clear. The default hotkey for that is Control-N. And essentially, what you want to do here, probably I would recommend, if you don't have a reason to be saving under, so you were doing File, Save As, and you're saving a project, I would stop doing that. I would recommend saving a Z tool over here. So under, it should be by default docked on the right side of your screen, but Tool, so that's the menu, and then just click on Save As, and that will save your Z tool. I pretty much always tell people that if you do not know why you should save a ZBrush project file under File, Save As, then don't. There's no reason to do that. So always save a Z tool, unless you later on have a good reason to save a project. They end up getting bulky, have a lot of extra junk in them, and you don't need all that. You just need your Z tool, the current Z tool you're working on. But hopefully that helps you out, and good luck to you. And if you're looking for, so it sounds like you're pretty new, which no problem. Everybody starts at the very beginning. Everybody starts from ground zero. But since I haven't shouted out since the beginning of the stream, I have a bunch of free stuff over on my YouTube channel, YouTube/Polygon. Check it out. A bunch of free tutorials, all sorts of stuff. And if you're looking for some, educational content as well, that's over there. And then I have some more organized educational content on my Gumroad, which is just Gumroad/Polygon. Courses, brushes, materials, yada yada yada. You guys get the idea. There's the URL, since I know it's covered up by the top thing there. But for people that are very new, I recommend my How to ZBrush Absolute Beginner's Guide. It's essentially a quick start guide for everything that you need to know to get up and running in ZBrush. There's a lot of old deprecated stuff in ZBrush that I don't think is really necessary to learn. Not to say that I don't think it's worth learning, but it's like a lot of stuff to slog through just to get to the core of ZBrush and what's important. Kind of like what you were just experiencing there with the stuff like getting, stuck all over your canvas. It kind of goes through all that stuff as quick as possible to get you up and sculpting. But yes, it's very, very frustrating. Like you said, quite a bit of a learning curve. It is different than pretty much any software out there, which I think is good, in my opinion. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Here. So I need to slide just about, I'm looking at this angle from shoulder to shoulder. And it's just so much steeper in the concept. And when I do this, I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. Because there's a lot of ways that I can do it, but I might screw up a lot of stuff when I do it. Let me just try to grab this with a kind of large move brush here a little bit. Get that into position. I actually think that collar's pretty close to where it needs to be over here. I think this shoulder needs to drop quite a bit lower though. Break our big balloon boy a little bit. It's like Disney, I love it, yeah. Very similar kind of cartoony style. Yeah, Luis Gadea is the original concept artist, for those interested in checking out more of their work. But yeah, we're in the posing phase. He's a little broken right now, just a little. But with a lot more TLC, we'll get him up to a good spot. Alright, we're getting there. Getting that shoulder in a lot better place now. I'm liking that change. That bottom shoulder needs to move too though. Straighten this collar out. It's quite a bit thin on that side too. That needs to move in a lot. That little shoulder chunk. It's a very steep, very, very steep angle. I honestly don't think that's enough though. It's really hard for me to tell with all this other junk in the way, but shouldn't have brought all this stuff over. I should have just brought the body, because now it's just being annoying. And I'm making lots of little nudges here with my brush, but honestly that's how I sculpt most of the time. Lots of little tweaks and changes. If I do lots of big changes, typically when I'm like making a move like this, I am you know, focused on the large scale, but getting there from every single angle. It's really important that you're turning your figure around and revolving your shapes properly. We are 3D artists, so, you know, gotta rotate. Look at it from as many angles as possible. And that means extreme angles as well. So like top down, bottom up, all that good stuff. Alright, that's a pretty big change. Let's just T-pose back really fast. See if that head aligns a little bit better. Honestly, the big fat arm is just kind of in the way right now. Alright, so that feels a lot better to me in terms of position, but there are still quite a few issues with scale there. If you look at the angle, so looking at this vest, see how that kind of like terminates halfway, a little bit more than halfway up the collar. So that's kind of helping give him that round shape all the way up there. So it's just kind of asymmetric in terms of his body. So, I mean, I guess you could argue it's a little bit of the arm move or something. But in all honesty, when, you know, 2D concept artists or just 2D artists in general are drawing this stuff, they're not always expecting something to exist perfectly as it is now in 3D and for everything to work properly. All 2D concepts are going to have some kind of, you know, issue when you try to translate it to 3D. There's always going to be some problem solving that needs to happen. Some a little bit more than others, for sure. What is up with these stupid fingernails? I've turned these off like 10 times and they will not go away. Oh man. Alright, so that head is feeling much better to me. Much better than before. It still has quite a few issues though. Amazing sculpt so far. Well, thank you, Tenchi Voodoo. Appreciate it, man. Man or lady. Appreciate it either way. I call everybody man, I think. Everybody dude. Everybody's a dude in my book. It's a weird book, though. Luis Gadea is the name of the artist. I'll spell it for you. G-A... Oh, you cannot see my bar there. Luis Gadea. They have a website, but they have an art station as well, which is where I follow them. There we go. There is the concept, and there is the spelling for ya. Love the collab work you did on the past sculpt. Well, thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Me and Shane Olsen were doing a past the sculpt thing. We actually... So, we have a part 2 coming out here pretty soon. I won't say when yet because I haven't edited it and I've been super busy, but I would like to get it out this week if I can. And then we're going to do... So there's a part 2 to this. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, just go to my YouTube channel, YouTube/FollowGun. It's like the second most recent video. It kind of breaks it. Shush past me. But yes, Shane and I got together and did some concepts from Luigi Lucarelli, and that was a ton of fun. But yes, there's a part 2 to that, and then we're gonna do, like I said, a third part, one last one. Essentially the way it works, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's called Pass the Sculpt. You sculpt a character, and at the end you pass it off to the other person, and then they continue working on that. So it's like a little bit like Telephone or something, I guess you could compare it to, like if you guys know that game. That's the basic idea. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm glad you liked it, though. Thank you, man. But yes, another part coming up, hopefully, pretty soon. That's the hope. Alright. That's feeling a lot better to me. Like I said, still, there's like this line right here. There's still a lot here that I want to change, though. Because it's not perfect. It'll never be perfect, right? Who was it? Leonardo da Vinci, I think. Art's never finished, only abandoned. I believe that was da Vinci. I got a really sharp, hard transition there. It's very much intentional, though, so that I can get that nice and clean through there. And then start fading it out a little. What? Stutter like a fool here, but something going on here. I cannot see. Need my sculpting material. There we go. The head is just kind of like bulging out here awkwardly. There we go. Jesus, that was very annoying. It's like a very small thing, but it just needs to be filled in through there a little bit. Alright, I think I got most of it. If it doesn't look good without materials and polypaint on it, it's not going to look good with it. I don't like a lot of rendering effects or anything like that typically. I just want my sculpt to kind of speak for itself a lot of the time. He's getting there. Obviously he's very broken right now though, since we just started posing him. Do you limit subdivision levels per pass? No, I don't. I really don't think about subdivision levels or poly count too much at all when I am sculpting. It's pretty much just whatever I need. If I need more polygons, get more polygons. If I need less polygons, get less polygons. Kind of like what I said before. I don't know if you were around for it. I was talking about form is more important than formula. Just kind of focus on your shapes and what you need. And obviously, you know, over time you'll get better at understanding the tools, but the important thing is you understand the tools and, you know, you don't really kind of pigeonhole yourself with anything like, I never go above seven subdivision levels. Well, if you have a really low poly piece, like this bag is 7 subdivision levels, and it's 100,000 polys, because it started from a cube. So I can, you know, subdivide that again, 8, that's 500,000, again it'll be like 2 million, so 9 subdivision levels. Should I go higher? I can. I mean, see how high we can go before ZBrush just completely shits the bed. So we're at 31 million, that's a little bit too high probably. So we'll undo some of that. We'll go back to where we were, because I don't really need any more right now. Like I said, as you need more, get more. Alright, that's feeling just a million times better to me. A lot of this character was just super difficult to sculpt in neutral, because so much of this dude is asymmetrical, and now that we're starting to break symmetry, it's becoming... I feel justified in like a lot of the stuff that I did on this guy, because I'm like, yeah, you know what, that was actually pretty close. But there is a lot of stuff that is very far off proportionally. And I just looked at the time and I realized that we're past when I'm supposed to jump off of here. So I'm gonna fix a couple things here on my dude for these materials, but let me know if you guys have any last minute questions, and I will answer what I can before we bounce out of here. More along the lines of working on general shapes before working on detail passes. I just create the largest shape first. So in this case, for this big dude, I started off with a sphere for the belly. Here's the first version of him. Started off with a sphere for the belly, and then got the secondary shape, which was to kind of pull it into like a teardrop, and then even more secondary shapes like the shoulders. So very simple stuff, very basic, very low poly. This is when I was still blocking out shapes for the face, but you know, over time, it'll get there. But that's kind of how I like to think about it: large, medium, small. Cartoony characters lose so much of their feel when in the neutral position. Yeah, I mean, any character is going to feel a bit awkward if it's like sitting there T-pose, right? It's pretty much always the case. A lot of character can happen in the pose. Like, think Superman, for instance. If Superman is not doing his iconic pose, that's like half the character. He's just a strong dude with his costume and pose, and that's Superman. That's what Superman looks like. Strong dude, certain pose. Oh, and maybe like a curly Q. So pose can be a lot. There can be a lot of character there. All right, I gotta stop fiddling because we're out of time, and I know somebody else is streaming right after me. Mikey, looks like you got the tail end. Model looks great. Appreciate it, man. Not a problem. Again, for those that are kind of joining us a little bit late here, if you're new here, this is the Pixologic ZBrush channel. There's a lot of people that stream here. I am one of them. My name's Ben Follygon. You guys can check out more of my work over on my YouTube channel, YouTube/Follygon. I cannot, there we go, YouTube/Follygon, or check out my Gumroad, just gumroad.com/Follygon, for all my courses, brushes, materials, base meshes, blah, 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 blah. If you guys are brand new to ZBrush and interested in getting up and running as quick as humanly possible, I recommend my Absolute Beginner's Guide. If you're more intermediate, I maybe recommend the Toys and Collectibles. And then I have some more advanced stuff, as well as my Mastering Appeal course, which I am wrapping up on the current term of that, and I will be opening up registration again for that here soon. I don't have an exact date nailed down yet, but soon is how I will keep it for now. But I promise it will be very soon. All right. With that, I will leave you guys. So you guys have a great rest of your night, and I will be here again next Tuesday. Same time, same place, 6 p.m. EST. Thank you, everybody. You guys have a great Tenchi Voodoo. Thank you for the stream. Awesome, man. No problem. All right. See you guys.